Hi, this is Professor Muldrow, and I'm going to show you how to download and install the Android Studio tool for making Android apps. Now, either you have never installed Android Studio on your computer before, or you currently have a version of Android Studio on your computer. If you already have a version of Android Studio on your computer, you don't want to do a full install, you want to do an upgrade. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. If you do not have Android Studio installed at all, what you need to do is come to this website. It's developer.android.com/studio. Once again, that's developer.android.com/studio. And you would click this button right here that says download Android Studio. And when you do that, you eventually get this icon in the bottom left-hand side of the browser, which is an executable file. You would click on that icon, and eventually Android Studio would be installed. And once it's installed, you get this Android Studio icon on your computer desktop. And when you double-click it, you get this. Now, if you've never installed Android Studio, you've never used it, you will not see this list on the left. I have this list because I've created several projects in Android Studio, and this list allows me to access those projects quickly again if I need to. Before, however, you start making projects in Android Studio, there are three things you must do. The first one is to check for updates, especially if you already have a version of Android Studio on your computer. What you would do is you come down here to where it says Configure, and then in this menu, go to the bottom where it says Check for Updates. It turns out I don't need any, but this is where you would upgrade to a newer version of Android Studio or upgrade other software within Android Studio. The most current version right now is version 4.0. I'd recommend upgrading to that if you already have a version of it. But once you've either installed or upgraded Android Studio, now you need to do two more things. First, again in Configure, go to SDK Manager. That stands for Software Development Kit. And the first thing you look at is SDK platforms. Now, all the ones that I have checkmarked, I've already installed. You can install all these versions of Android if you want and experiment with them, but the one you definitely need is this one right here, Android 4.0.3, otherwise known as Ice Cream Sandwich. That version is 100% compatible with all Android devices. So definitely you want to download and install that one. The rest of them, you can download and install as you wish. When you want to install something, what you do is you click the checkbox next to whichever one you want to install, like this one, Android 5.0 Lollipop, and when you do that, the Apply button becomes available. You will click the Apply button, and whatever you've selected will install or update. Okay, I'm not going to install anything on this page right now. But once you're done with this, the next thing you do is click on SDK Tools, Software Development Kit Tools. Now, everything you see here in this list, I would recommend you install. You can check all of these and install them all at once if you want to, or you can go one by one. But one little word of advice. For this tool down here, this Intel x86 Emulator Accelerator, this tool requires that you be logged onto your computer as an administrator on a Windows PC. Probably a root on a Mac or a Linux PC. If you're not logged on as an administrator, you cannot install this Emulator Accelerator. Now, I don't know if this tool makes that big of a difference in running your project, but I recommend you install it anyway. The rest of these tools that you see checkmarked, you do not have to be an administrator to install these. Once again, you just select whatever you want to install, then you click the Apply button when it becomes available, and it installs. Now, one more thing you need to do. Again, in Configure, you must go to the first selection, AVD Manager. AVD stands for Android Virtual Device. These are devices that allow you to execute your projects and test them out to make sure that they work correctly. Now, I have several of these virtual devices installed already. The ones I would recommend you install are Nexus API 25, Nexus 5X API 29, and finally this top one, Nexus 10 API 22. Those three I would recommend you install. Now, once again, if you don't have anything installed, you need to create a virtual device. That's this button down at the bottom. So you would click that, make sure that you have phone selected for one thing, and then you would scroll down this menu and find the one you want. I'm going to install another Nexus 5. So you select this and you click Next. Now you must also select a system image, which is some version of Android Google Play software. The majority of the times we use this one, Nougat, which is API level 25. If you pick any different ones, you're going to have a download. Like, for example, you have Oreo 26. Suppose you want to download it. Now, I'll warn you, whenever you download or install anything in Android Studio, it takes time. Nothing happens quickly in Android Studio, so you must be patient with this tool. I'm going to pause this recording until this finishes. All right, my version of Oreo is now finished. As you can see, it no longer has the download link, and so we select that one. Make sure you have a system image selected. Now you click Next. And on this page, the Verify Configuration, you don't need to do anything. You just click on Finish. And it's going to create the virtual device eventually. And here it is, right there on the bottom. So now you've created a virtual device, and now you can run your program. Now, as I said before, whenever you do an installation or an upgrade or build a project or run a project in Android Studio, it takes time. Android Studio is a notoriously slow tool, and nothing happens quickly in Android Studio. So you will need to develop some patience when you work with Android Studio. All right, that's the end of this recording. In my next video, I will show you how to create and run a very simple project in Android Studio. If you have any questions, send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu. Thank you for watching.